Is there like nobody talking in here, or something wrong with my mic?
I mean, they are sleeping. They are sleeping.
Oh, it's a sleep center. I didn't realize this was for sleeping in here.
Interesting. New perspective. New perspective. Very nice.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was funny earlier with Pastafarian. I just put that clip in the chat. Funny extremists took off as soon as they got here. He didn't want to have a plane battle, I'm sure.
Nah, that pasta guy got fucking wrecked, bro.
That was so funny. Did you see a clip I put up?
What happened?
This Pastafarian guy just talks out his ass and thinks he's smart.
Very nice.
He got noodled. He got noodled by Jeremy and Gio on everything he said. That's funny. You're like, oh, yeah, this is just things that you've been told, like it's just things you heard, and then you're putting like all your cards and you're putting all your eggs in that basket because you heard it. And why would he just like totally deny that he said it was heat? Like, he knows people can go back 5 minutes and hear what he said. I mean, he tripled and quadrupled down on it, like as if he could
People
just
never,
change what he said.
because people never want to be wrong. They'll never admit when they're wrong. Like when you're in this like heavy debate thing, they get like tunnel vision.
Do you think he actually believed he said something different, or do you think he was? Because he's stupid either way. If he actually thought he said something different, that's not very smart. But if he was trying to change what he said, and people can go back, that's not smart either.
Yeah, I don't know. He's trolling us with that pasta shit anyway, so whatever. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
That whole
I
pasta
believe
thing
that.
is a that whole pasta
Yeah,
thing is a troll made up for
I know.
Christians and shit.
Yeah, and I believe it was a spaghetti monster making everything happen before I think that the heliocentrism made sense. I'll give him that.
Pasta Spaghetti Man more likely than Globe. At least it's got that going for it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at least he's pointing out that there's other less ridiculous concepts to think might be possible. But
Well, yeah,
the
they try
whole
to
like,
make it. They use that for the
yeah,
evolution to try to say like, oh well, it's it could be anything like a flying spaghetti monster or whatever. So yeah, they kind of try to
yeah, sure.
use it for that.
God could be a. How do we know what God looks like? If he looks like a spaghetti monster, then fine. There's no way to know. So point taken. But yeah, what was it we were saying? Geo, like what we believe, like simulation theory, like any of them, any of the other ideas that are like a little less ridiculous than balls going around other balls with no evidence whatsoever, even in the physical universe. Nothing about balls attracting balls. That was great the way you put that too. I wanted to cut that little clip of you saying, no, the known laws of physics never show us balls attracted to balls, other than gay guys.
Yeah. I didn't say that last part, but I said all the other parts. But yeah.
Yeah, I added that in. I paraphrased a little bit.
But yeah. Well, yeah, because that's the thing. He's saying like his explanation of the sky is all the balls, and then it's like, okay, well, and he was trying to say, oh, all the known physics relate to that, but they don't, because balls don't orbit other balls. So, yeah.
And you're exactly right. I mean, that's the crux of it. They see something falling down at a certain rate, and then they say, well, if it was a ball and there was that rate that was attributed to it, and this idea of attracting balls, which isn't even their idea any longer, it's supposed to be this warping of space time. So it's all just, it's so nonsensical. I can't even believe the people that understand it still believe it.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that into about how it ended up going to bendy warpy space time, but I mean, I wasn't really I'm just saying I was thinking that in my mind when I was saying that one part that like because mass attracting mass and they're trying to claim that the way that things fall to the ground is then related to huge balls and that things are going to the center of balls. And then you get this orbiting effect, which only happens on this huge scale that's unfalsifiable, that only government agents who go to space claim to be able to check that actually it is happening, on the massive scale that big balls are attracting other big balls. Meanwhile, it doesn't actually happen in reality. Yeah. Yeah. And they're just using that rate to then apply it to a conceptual framework of the sphere. And then,
And isn't it funny that like the only time things attract to each other is with magnetism that we know of, right? Seem to be attracting, whatever, however it actually works. But yeah, like a magnetic ball being attracted to another magnetic ball is something we can show and demonstrate and see that it happens in the physical universe. And then if you change that to like the space time concept, that's very similar to like the way an electromagnetic field might affect things. So it's like there's direct parallels to physical things, but they can't call it electromagnetism or magnetism. They have to say it's this weight idea with the free space and the falling, and it's just like such a nonsensical interpretation. Electromagnetism and magnetism definitely is a more direct relationship that we can see, even if it's not the case.
Yeah, that was the thing. He was trying to say that, like, how could something electrostatic or electromagnetic be happening in the sky? But ironically, that is something we can prove on the ground. So it was actually the opposite of what he was saying. He was like, oh, it's impossible that it could have an electrostatic force. But we
Exactly.
can actually prove that. Yeah, we can actually show that that is a thing on the ground. So it's likely to think that if it's on the ground, it could be up there as well. Whereas the concept,
Right.
he was trying to say that all the known physics, seem to connect to these balls orbiting balls, but it really doesn't. It's just that one physic that they then kind of extrapolate into a whole assumption. So yeah, it's interesting. It's actually the opposite because he was trying to say that all the electrostatic and electromagnetic is unproven in a sense that could be the cause. But the thing is, we know that is a cause of things, whereas balls orbiting other balls is not even a cause that whole thing is it's just reified and like fabricated as a
Yeah.
concept.
And they even call it a gravity field to show a picture that is basically depicting electromagnetic field, but they're calling it a gravity field. So somehow it makes sense in their world, right? Which when does gravity have a field now? I mean, I didn't know there was a gravity field that really fit into. I guess that's when it becomes bending, warping space time, and the field somehow fits into that explanation. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. It's an way better as an electromagnetic field, which we actually know exists. There's no gravity field that can be proven whatsoever.
Yeah, and even with that, the old like Van de Graaff generator, which you can actually change the direction of what they call gravity. And I'm not saying that's the entire cause of gravity, but nonetheless, it's directly connected. So you can actually manipulate. Like if you're having a contest, where you're like, okay, is it electrostatics or is it this bendy warpy space time mass attracting mass? Like, yeah, they could have a little Cavendish thing that shows that little effect, but that doesn't actually mean that mass is attracting mass. They still haven't proven that, and you can get into that whole thing because it's not. They're just observing a phenomenon and then applying a one type of interpretation, with it. Whereas with electrostatics, you actually can replicate it right in front of your face. Not to say that you can replicate the entire effect of what we call gravity, but you can modulate it and you can adjust it. So yeah, it's really kind of interesting. I was like the opposite of what he was saying. It's actually more the electrostatics is more something that's actually proven in the physical world that could be related rather than these other concepts. But somehow they've flipped the
And not
script
only
on people
that,
and
but
gotten people to think that that's some kind of standard. That what they've given them is
yeah,
it's wild. It's such a deception how
exactly.
they trick people.
It's such an appeal to authority. I mean, the authority is saying that's the only way it could be, even though it's the opposite of what it might be, and what we know to be, from what we know to be. But yeah, but not only that, like say if there was an equivalence, the actual kinematic equivalence, which I guess mathematically there could be a kinematic equivalence, but there was never a dynamic equivalence because all of their shit doesn't even have dynamics. The masses are always canceled out in the equations anyway. So there's really no dynamics at all to what they're saying about any orbiting bodies or any of that. But even if there was a kinematic equivalence and that's all we had on either side, well, then obviously the stationary levelers would win out because of the very basic experience we have, which would definitely outweigh it to begin with in any of our minds. But if you had like all things equal, like a contest, like you're saying, and you added it all up, and you're like, oh yeah, but this one actually aligns with our direct experience. So it wins out on that basis alone, as well as if you add it all up and then add that in.
Yeah, which reminds me of Witsit has made the argument about that it doesn't have the dark matter problem. Like when he's talked about some of the electrostatic, electromagnetic components and how those don't have the dark matter issue, which obviously the mainstream model does. So like he's made that argument, that, and I'm just kind of paraphrasing it, but that it's more viable because it doesn't have that issue, that huge assumption, which is a good point. So this kind of plays into that in a way. This is not really with dark matter, but it's just in general. They have something that is unfalsifiable because it requires something to be of such a great size, and then really it's only I've been saying that, like, using the term government agents, because they are the people that have claimed to have been to space are government agents. So you have government agents claiming they've been out there to see it, but there's no actual physics that is falsifiable that actually is occurring. So it's the biggest appeal to authority and dependence on authority possible, because it's literally government agents that are like, oh yeah, it is really big, it is a ball, things are all attracting out here for sure. That's the only thing they have to actually go off when it comes to that.
Yeah,
part
and it's all hinged on things that are impossible. Yeah, and there's that, and the physics actually would be impossible because of the things that we know and contest, and wouldn't add up with what they're saying. There's the three-body problem, which is only a mathematical solution that can be used with the Lagrange parking spots or whatever. It's just none of it is even viable physically. It's not like they have like a viable theory that the authorities are even pushing. It's like it's beyond ridiculous and impossible that the authorities are pushing, which makes you have to have faith. And then they know that, like I always say, like if your idea of reality is the opposite of what makes sense in any common sense way, and it's totally wrong, and you think that that's true, then they know that they made you think that. Because if it was something that was just common sense that we would all reach on our own, then they would have no idea if you're mind controlled or not, because you could have reached that conclusion on your own.
Yeah, it's interesting using it as like a gauge. Well, that might be kind of how they do
like
this.
They have to make it impossible, so they know that you're stupid, and they made you stupid, right?
That you bought it. Yeah, they know you bought it.
Yeah.
Basically, at that point.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's kind of tricky. It's clever though, because it is linked on some things that are related to reality. So that's where it's kind of the cleverness of the deception does come in. Because they have a lot of people convinced on this, and all these people are not necessarily stupid people. There's a lot of intelligent people, that are even in these fields. Now, maybe they're intelligent in some ways and not intelligent in others, but or maybe the emotional intelligence, or even if there's a like spiritual intelligence or intuitive intelligence, for them to be able to see that it's based on these these issues. Because you could be really smart, but if you're taking something as just as like a foundational assumption, that's problematic. And that is unintelligent in a way to take something as an assumption, but it's not necessarily like of a technical nature to take the assumption. Well, it could be seen as that. It kind of blends in both ways, that it is of an unintelligent nature to take something as an assumption. And that's why I was saying the spiritual or other components might come in as to why they're doing that in the first place. Or just like there's like some part of their logic that is broken there, but they might be very intelligent, logical people in other ways as well, and then they might not have just thought enough about it or really gone deep enough into it. And again, just taking some of those foundational assumptions, and then being willing to kind of just bridge the gap in their mind and then use their other technical expertise, that is still of a high intelligence within that framework that had the foundational assumption in the first place.
Yeah, I always say it's the perfect specimen that the joke about like I'm no rocket scientist, because a rocket scientist may be smart enough to put the rocket together. He's just not wise enough to realize it never goes to space.
Right. Yeah, it's funny when you say that phrase, or when that's. I don't know who came up with that, but that's a funny one. Yeah,
I did. I actually came up with it.
You did?
They're the perfect specimen. Because it's like, I've realized that must be a joke on us. Like rocket scientists aren't, they may be smart, but they lack the wisdom to realize the obvious. Those two extremes.
Yeah, although some of those rocket scientist dudes, like even Werner von Braun, he knew they weren't going to space, but nonetheless, yeah, there's a lot of other ones that probably think they do, and they are actually building. I mean, those rockets are being built, so they're all the thrusters and all
Yeah,
that.
when the golden handcuffs, you're getting paid $500,000 a year to do whatever you're doing, whether it goes to space or not. It's not their concern, and they know even if they said something, it's not like the whole world's going to listen. So, what would be the point, right?
Yeah, but there would have to be like a portion of the rocket scientists who actually would know they're not going to space, because there's a part where they launch it and it goes up, and then obviously like they have to do something with it as it comes back down. So there's got to be a part of the engineering team that engineers what it actually does. You know, if it just arcs and then starts coming back down, and then they then have to engineer how it falls, and whether they pick it up on an airplane in midair or whether they let it fall and then get it on the ground. So yeah, it's kind of like probably the civilian level of rocket scientists don't know. They think it's going to space because they're building the thrusters, and then they pass it off to the next team. But there's got to be engineers at the more in the know level of it that actually know that they're not going to space. So yeah, it's probably partial with that.
Yeah, same with the satellites, like we were talking about with E1 showing the night vision stuff, where he had all the satellites he was showing that he's caught with his night vision camera. I mean, there's stuff that is circuiting around up there, and they would have to know if they're deploying a satellite in the north or the south because there's a different charge. You would have to make sure that the thing had, so it would sync up with the circuit and do its thing the way it's supposed to do it. So he's saying that the people at the certain level would have to know if they're deploying it in the south or the north because it has a different type of charge for each area.
Yeah. Well, I don't know myself like what you're exactly saying in terms of the north and south charge difference, but I would say like if you want to speak more on that, but I'm just responding to like the idea that satellites, if if there are actually devices above us that are, which I do think there are devices, whether that's whether all of the ones they're saying are actually there or not is a whole question. But either way, like let's just say they are actually putting those things up there, but they're just not free falling around a ball, but they're actually doing something different. Then yeah, there would have to be a whole engineering team to that too, to actually do what they're really doing, rather than the ones that are doing or making the equipment and they think it's free falling, but it's not actually free falling, but the equipment's still being used. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. If it is an electromagnetic circuit that it's using, then it would somebody could even observe it and think that it's orbiting because it's circling around. They're seeing the actual thing that's circuiting in the air. I mean, in the sky, and they can see it, and they think of it as an orbit. They can even interpret it as a falling fluid motion, which you would only get with like an.
Either way, like let's just say they are actually putting those things up there, but they're just not free falling around a ball, but they're actually doing something different. Then yeah, there would have to be a whole engineering team to that too, to actually do what they're really doing, rather than the ones that are doing or making the equipment and they think it's free falling, but it's not actually free falling, but the equipment's still being used. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. If it is an electromagnetic circuit that it's using, then it would somebody could even observe it and think that it's orbiting because it's circling around. They're seeing the actual thing that's circuiting in the air. I mean, in the sky, and they can see it, and they think of it as an orbit. They can even interpret it as a falling fluid motion, which you would only get with like an electromagnetic circuit. It explains why they wouldn't have to fuel up and all those things. It's just riding the circuit that everything else rides on, that already exists, that's always existed.
Yeah, but you think you can actually put something up there into it?
Yeah, I mean, at one point I might have thought that there's nothing up there and it's all on balloons, but you can see that. I mean, people can go out with night vision goggles or cameras and see all kinds of stuff flying around up there. Not stars, you can tell the difference. Have you ever seen that? Did you see when he was showing that in the video? He was showing what he got with his night vision stuff.
I might have missed it when he showed his, but yeah, there is a lot of stuff up there, like lights that are shooting around. Yeah, I have seen footage. I don't know if I saw his, but I have seen footage of, really zoomed in. So yeah, there Yeah, but
He
are you
seems
saying
to
all
know
those
like
things
the
are
difference.
in a medium up there that are actually moving? Is that what you're suggesting that they are? That's what we're actually looking at?
Well, that's what he was suggesting, that this is like this is the toroidal field that they're using, and he seemed to know the difference between like one that seemed to be like a spy satellite, or one that was normal, and one that was bigger that might be something that is unknown, like unidentified, and but things that are like coming in at certain times, and he's like done some heavy study on like the timing of it and knowing when it's going to come in, and like the Starlinks, and how he knows that it's not this Starlink. He was suggesting that um, the Starlinks that we see, that are like the actual Starlinks, are maybe just a mimic of something else that's even brighter and more powerful going on up there. And maybe like the Starlink program, or the way that they have the Starlink presented to us, is like a cover for what's actually up there, so that if anyone observed those things, they would just assume it's Starlink. Like maybe those are outer ponder Starlinks that we have no control or no idea what they are, but they're like, okay, we're just going to make it seem like that's us by making Elon Musk have these other Starlinks, which are way less bright and lower in the sky. I don't know. That's the idea he was talking about. It already exists. That's always existed.
Yeah, but you think you can actually put something up there into it?
Yeah, I mean, at one point I might have thought that there's nothing up there and it's all on balloons, but you can see that. I mean, people can go out with night vision goggles or cameras and see all kinds of stuff flying around up there. Not stars, you can tell the difference. Have you ever seen that? Did you see when he was showing that in the video? He was showing what he got with his night vision stuff. Sure, they know it backwards and forwards exactly
Well,
how it
like they
works.
claim that, yeah, like geostationary satellites are on the equator, whereas the geosynchronous are the ones that are like off kilter from the equator. About that symmetrical nature of it. Because to sell to the whole world something that it isn't, it would have to match in some ways, but then not be the truth. That's how they can pull
Yeah,
this
and
off.
in the middle of like where they say they're going to crash the ISS, where Point Nemo is, that they say is the most remote area on Earth. Like, well, that would be the place to hide the whole secret in the depths of the most remote areas to get to, that no one really can. No one would ever want to go there, and if they did, they probably have to have an official pass to get there.
Yeah, I mean those would have to be like anomalous zones for a dual pole. I mean there are people that claim to just sail across the Pacific and whatnot. So, but I know, like you said, you think they're maybe just going in circles. They're not actually going straight there. But yeah, there would have to be some
Yeah,
kind of
across the
a
Pacific,
blocked off area.
either either a little bit up from north or down from south. You could be totally believing you're sailing across the blue side of the ball without it being on the other side of anything. It's just outside. It's just on the outside.
Interesting subject. Geo, Geo, why do you have so many Zionists as majority?
I couldn't really hear you. Your microphone's kind of hard to hear. But Dave,
Yeah,
I was just thinking, like like the ring, like Lord of the Rings and stuff. But like from the Pacific Ocean being like a ring around the outside, and it's like it's like one ring to rule them all, and the Lord of the Rings, all that kind of stuff. It's just interesting to think about, like that idea, at least what you're saying, that if they took the ring of the Pacific and then wrapped it around a ball and metal, made that ring essentially the blue side of the globe. That's kind of an interesting like idea to link that to like the
Yeah,
ring of power or whatever,
totally.
and they're using that to have power over the realm by deceiving people that
Right.
the ring isn't there and it's actually the blue side of a big ball out in
That's
space.
a good thought. Totally. The ring of the equator, the sun's equator ring. They kind of depict it that way almost with the golden ring. Interesting.
Yeah, it just made me think of that, and then just the whole like Lord of the Rings and that kind of concept, and the kind of rulership and that kind of goes with that theme of it. Yeah, of like a ring. So I guess in a way, a ring kind of like encompasses or encircles. So if they have you like trapped in a deception, I mean, there's a lot of just kind of like themes or symbols that could go with that, but it's sort of like an infinite loop of a deception, you know, that they have people in.
The same with the eye, the all-seeing eye, with that being, well, there's a whole thing that E goes into with like the way that the sun goes from tropic to tropic. Look, I mean, right of the celestial equator, how that could be interpreted as the all-seeing eye that moves 23 degrees in either direction, kind of like it's looking over the whole thing. How that could be interpreted as the all-seeing eye that moves 23 degrees in either direction, kind of like it's looking over the whole thing. If you mapped it out and just took a picture of the sun as its dead center, and then for a full year it would go, it would kind of like look like the eyes moving back and forth from tropic to tropic along
Like
the
the
prime
analemma.
meridian. No, like, well, yeah, no more like if you look down on top of the grid, it's like a lot with the dual pole, and it's the prime meridian in the middle. And if you took a picture of the sun right at the prime meridian, every time it crosses that line through the celestial equator, even if it goes south or north, and it's going to be at the prime meridian either above the celestial equator, 23 degrees, 23.4 degrees, or below it. I made a little graphic that goes with it. I'll put it in the chat. You'll get what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I think I kind of am following part of it, but yeah, I think I know what you're saying, but I just to make sure, like how it links to the eye. I mean, that pattern of that kind of the electric field that has two poles is sort of like the eye in a way where I was thinking of it where it's like the equator is like the middle of your eye where your two eyelids come together and meet. So then you have like the upper part of your eye where your eyelid goes up, and then the lower part of your eye where the eyelid goes down. You know, as your eyes blink. That kind of reminds me of like with that dual pole type of layout where you'd have the equator line would be the center where your eyelids meet, and then as you open them, you got the north and south sections. But then you can move your eye around in there, obviously, or like a gyroscope thing. But and then as the sun and moon and everything kind of moves between the tropics, it's like I thought that's what you were thinking of. Like the eye goes up to 23.4 north, and then back to the equator, and then down to 23.4 south, kind of like pings back and forth, like all the sun and moon and the luminaries all do that. It's like I guess that would be the idea. Like the eye only has that range of motion or something. I thought that's kind of what you meant.
Yeah, there's a lot of examples that could be interpreted that way for sure. With the all-seeing eye, it being Polaris too, and he did like a time lapse with Polaris in he did 6 months apart, and he showed that Polaris a little orbit, but a little circuit of its own. It does like the top part of what seems like you could interpret it as the eye of Horus or Ra, and it has a little divot, just like the eye that they draw for the eye of Ra in his time elapse. It's like a football shape, and he does it 6 months apart, and the top half has like that perfect eyelid shape, and then the bottom half has the same shape that is perfectly like the other side with a little divot on the end of it. Yeah, there's a lot of examples that could be interpreted that way for sure. With the all-seeing eye, it being Polaris too, and he did like a time lapse with Polaris in he did 6 months apart, and he showed that Polaris a little orbit, but a little circuit of its own. It does like the top part of what seems like you could interpret it as the eye of Horus or Ra, and it has a little divot, just like the eye that they draw for the eye of Ra in his time elapse. It's like a football shape, and he does it 6 months apart, and the top half has like that perfect eyelid shape, and then the bottom half has the same shape that is perfectly like the other side with a little divot on the end of it, like it catches and goes back to its starting point. It's crazy. That could be, I mean, that could be where the interpretation of the Eye of Ra comes from.